Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. Hopefully my doctor's appointment goes well tomorrow, because I have been putting up with this earwax for way too bloody long. But of course, you didn't come here to find me lug-rolling all my problems around. This video is going to be dedicated to a number of things. First and foremost, I want to talk again about Paul Thorpe and Richard Inman. Now, these two people have been putting out that they are moving away from politics for a time. They have not apparently given up support for Tommy Robinson. Now, I am not going to go into too much speculation about why Paul Thorpe and Richard Inman are doing that, because I honestly don't know. The only bit of info I do know about Richard Inman is he claims that it's not the establishment threatening him, which, honestly, I think it would make anyone fight even harder if the establishment is threatening them. But it does kind of beg the question, doesn't it? Why is it that these two are now pulling away? Perhaps in what could be Tommy Robinson's darkest hour. I reckon this is a time more than anything where Tommy needs all the help he can get, because obviously the establishment see him as public enemy numero uno. They're going to do everything in their power to make sure that Tommy Robinson absolutely suffers while he's in the UK. And they plan on doing that through, of course, what we all know about, lawfare. Because most people, when they get charged with contempt of court, and either they pay their fine or they serve their time, in Tommy's case, which I've already said till I'm blue in the face that, quite frankly, Tommy Robinson is not guilty of, even though he pled guilty to it. I suspect he only did it just to lower the sentence. But the real people who committed the so-called contempt of court, if there was a case for it at all, would be the Americans who released the film Silenced in the first place. But why would they let the truth get in the way of a good hit piece on Tommy Robinson? The truth is, which is going to be hard to swallow for the leftoids, is that Tommy Robinson should never have been jailed in the first place. And the fact that he spent 6 months in solitary confinement and there are no human lawyers in sight. Sorry, human rights lawyers. I mean, last time I checked, we're all human, although there are some parts of me that wishes that I weren't. But those are more of the role-playing side of things in Dungeons & Dragons, and that's not why you're here. Sometimes I like to identify as a goblin. Who said goblin all the food? Shut up, you. Anyway, the point is, Tommy Robinson should not be in jail in the first place. He should not have even been put in jail for that so-called crime, which he never committed. Now, back in, 2016, when he stepped on the lands of the court, that was a justifiable contempt of court, because he didn't know the law. In 2018, with the Leeds Crown Court case, with, let me point out, Lizzie Dearden, or maybe I was right first time, who ended up, allegedly, breaking the same crime that Tommy Robinson did. The same law, the same restriction. Namely, that apparently he wasn't allowed to report on the grooming gangs that were operating here in the country. He wasn't allowed to talk about the people in this case, but the thing is, everything that he spoke about was already in the public domain. Thus, he did not breach contempt of court. But the mainstream media, of course, willfully lied and said he broke the law and that he pled guilty when he never did. Lizzie Dearden, though, even though she knew full well that the reporting restriction was irrelevant because everything was in the public domain, she only had to face a £10,000 fine, which the Independent pay for, while Tommy spent 5 months at Her Majesty's finest. Yes, I say Her Majesty's because it was Queen Elizabeth, obviously. He was locked up in prison as a civil prisoner, not a criminal offender, and he was basically treated like shit. God, I've got assassins after me now, Jesus Christ. Guy coming up behind me and I don't even bloody hear him. Anyway, the point is, this contempt of court never happened in the first place back then, and it's not happened back in July. Considering the Americans, as I said, put out Silenced into the public domain before Tommy Robinson did, there was no breach of contempt of court. And considering this was already out there before he released it, all him putting it out there on stage, live, for everyone to see, was it even more put it out there when it was already out there in the first place. Yet because he dared to put it up, they had him locked up. But here's where it gets really sinister. So obviously Tommy Robinson is serving his time for contempt of court. Surely he'll be released and we'll hear nothing more about it. Oh, of course not. Because that would be too fucking easy, wouldn't it? No, what our establishment and the highest judge in the land have decreed is that Tommy must purge this video from the internet before he's released. Because if he's released and that film is up there, he's going back to jail. Just like that. Not only is this something that we have never done before, where we make someone serve time for a crime, but then we make them do more time on the back of repeating the same charge, which I believe is not allowed, if I recall correctly. But of course the mainstream media won't tell you this. You know the drill, folks, because say it with me, it doesn't suit the narrative. Do you know of any other journalist that has had to be subjected to the same charge twice? Obviously, when I say the same charge, I don't mean, for example, what happened in 2016 and then another one in 2018. I'm talking about what happened in July last year and then what happened in July last year again. That's what I mean when I say he's being charged twice for the same crime. No other person in modern British history has ever had to go through that. No other person has ever had to face justice for a crime they've already served time for. This now goes beyond two-tier justice. I am willing to go as far as saying this is three-tier justice. You obviously have the murderers, the grapers, and you have the PDF files who can get away with suspended sentences for the worst crimes known to man. Then we have ordinary patriots that can get arrested for something they've posted on social media and they face custodial sentences. And now we have Tommy Robinson, who is effectively facing charges multiple times for the same fucking crime. And I ask you, if this was the other way round, how long do you think it would take for the establishment to dismiss this claim? If this was a leftoid being charged multiple times on the back of the same crime at the same time, that thing would be gone. Just like that. Because they wouldn't allow it. But of course, because it's Tommy Robinson and because it's a film that effectively portrays significant failings from child support, CPS, from the Crown Prosecution Service, or is it the Criminal Protection Service? Obviously the establishment, the likes of Keir the Traitor Starmer, and of course the Tories. We have significant failings from the councils and the cover-ups. Apparently it's okay for them to do it when it comes down to a patriot exposing the government. And what this does is it sets a very, very dangerous precedent that basically people are going to realise more and more. The more this goes on, the more it becomes obvious to anybody still fast asleep in the UK, or any country for that matter, that we live in a purely two-tier society. Keir the Traitor Starmer cannot even hope to silence this. And to the highest judge in the land, this goes to you directly. Do not enforce that lawfare. Do not send Tommy back because you lot are incapable of manning up or womaning up and actually accepting responsibility for your fuck-ups. Because that's really what it boils down to. You lot don't want to take accountability for the grape gangs, for the release of murderers and PDF files. You don't want to take accountability for DEI being a complete and utter disaster equal to the impossible. You don't want to accept that we are living in a two-tier policing and two-tier justice society. You don't want to admit that illegal immigration is turning our country into a third world shithole. You don't want to admit that the British people were never asked, do we want mass uncontrolled immigration? And if they were told, do you want this? They would have told you to stick it where the sun doesn't shine, quite frankly. And I know there were some people who even compared Tommy Robinson to a boil on a bum, I believe. Or was it someone else? Well, I think that's just merely projection, because right now, I think we've all got a severe rash in our genitalia that is coming from our very oligarchy for all of their two-tier justice, policing, and two-tier governance. Their sectarian politics, the cover-up of these grooming gangs, and of course the fact that we are having to watch what we say on the internet for fear we'll get locked up. Whereas we can have people who are committing the worst crimes known to man that can just walk, or at bare minimum have suspended sentences. And it begs the question, why do we put up with this? Why? Why should we, why should we have to put up with these wankers? People wonder why I say there's a civil blank coming. People wonder why I say we need to prepare for the Arlution. People wonder why I say that I am going after Richard Inman and basically saying, or Paul Thorpe, and saying, I don't have a problem with you going out of your way to look after yourselves or look after your family. What I have a problem with is the way you still live in the delusion that we can do this peacefully. Because the cold, bitter truth that nobody wants to accept is we have to start preparing for blank. Because our government is seeking to replace us. I know Patriots of Britain often says on Twitter, there are people who have fake concern, who have fake patriotism. Let me tell you something. I am not one of those fakers. At the end of the day, I want to put more of this content out there so that people understand we need to be getting ready. We need to prepare for the worst. Understandably, it would be a lot easier for me to be able to go out there and actually protest and do more stuff for my country if I weren't so restricted on my finances. It would be so much easier if I could sit here and say, yeah, you know what, I got 10, 20 grand in my bank account. I can afford to do this for a while. But unfortunately, I don't. Most people don't have that luxury. Because at the end of the day, we've all got to live. You can't expect people to destroy their own lives for the sakes of wanting to basically go one and beyond for their country. If I had actual security as far as my well-being and my life is concerned, I'd be out there on the streets, just like that, because I would be able to do so without fear of losing my house, losing my job, and losing my well-being. Because what good is a patriot if they've lost their free trial of life? Answer that. But I am deviating a little bit. Let's bring this back onto the topic. Basically, our society is under two-tier justice and policing, and our government and the highest judge in the land, who has about as much honour as a backstabbing weasel, these people are saying if Tommy Robinson does not remove that film via his admin team, by the time he gets out, he'll be rearrested straight away and put on that same charge again. They have no right to deny people the information that exposes high-tier corruption, that exposes substantial injustice, that has exposed that our government is complicit in protecting these groomers, that are complicit in looking after our enemies rather than their own people. They have no right to do that. They cannot do something like this if what Tommy Robinson has put out would definitely be in the public's interest. And I think a lot of people would agree that exposing this kind of corruption is definitely within the public's interest. Whereas what the Attorney General did basically a politically motivated imprisonment of Tommy Robinson, and I won't hear anybody's crap otherwise about, oh, it wasn't politically motivated. Why did the Attorney General get involved then? That's the thing. If anybody dares to say it was not politically motivated, you can literally debunk that argument in less than 5 seconds. Bam! And they're gone. Because their argument would hold up about as well as a feather in a wind. Or the wind, sorry. Let's call it out for what it is. This is maligned persecution. This is malicious persecution of Tommy Robinson. Now, as far as actually desiring to remove the video is concerned, I am conflicted because I can see it from both sides here. On the one hand, I can understand why people feel like he doesn't want to give the establishment a massive win by getting rid of Silenced. Though in reality, this win is going to be about the size of a pea, to be brutally honest, because all other people would need to do is take that documentary and re-upload it. And I know what you're thinking, the establishment will arrest Tommy again. But here's the thing, if they do that based off of an entirely independent person's actions, it would unequivocally expose them for the fascists that they are. It would expose them for the deceitful bastards that they are. Because obviously Tommy Robinson could not control the masses. He can't control what everyone else does. He has no way that he can control what 6 billion people on this planet do. He can't control what 1 million people on this planet do, let alone the whole planet. So trying to vet this, trying to stop this film from being leaked out by every person on this planet is like trying to catch water with a fishing net. It's not going to happen. I mean, sure, the ropes themselves or the fibers will get wet, but there'll be nothing inside that damn thing. And even if they got like some kind of airtight container, think of it like the waters that spread around on the earth. They might be able to get a little bit of that water. They're not going to stop the whole fucking planet of water. Besides, you'd cause the whole planet to dehydrate. So the mere idea alone that they could attempt to stop people from putting out this documentary, let alone actually stop Tommy Robinson, is completely far-fetched at best, and absolute insanity at worst. They would be doing more harm than good in every conceivable way. There is no shot that they would be able to effectively stop people from releasing this documentary. It's as simple as that. On the other side of the spectrum, I can understand Tommy not wanting to put himself through any more mental instability. And I can understand people, and myself, are very concerned for Tommy Robinson. We don't want to see him become a vegetable. Although I prefer to have spinach myself. That way I can at least grow some biceps. Anyway, Tommy Robinson doesn't want to become a vegetable, and we don't want him to become one either. However, we need to make sure that we've got the right balance here. I mean, the way I look at it, we're already in a blank with the establishment. It's okay to lose a few battles, just so long as they don't win the blank. I don't think any of us want to see Tommy Robinson have his free trial of life cut short. I don't think any of us want to see him suffer. So I can understand from that side of just take down the video and effectively live to fight another day. Because as I said before, what good is a patriot if his life has ended, quite frankly? He ain't going to be doing anything for his country then, aside from accompanying the soil that we have beneath our feet. So I understand it completely from both sides. On the one hand, we don't want to give in to the establishment because we need to expose the truth. But on the other hand, we also accept that Tommy Robinson is probably the biggest figurehead of our movement, our protest. So understandably, we don't want to see him come to harm. And the establishment better not see any harm done to him, because that would spark a civil blank. But as I said, the way we counteract this is they haven't said exclusively the whole video in general cannot be put out by anyone else. They've only said Tommy Robinson has to purge this video and he can't publish it. And right now the establishment is in a catch-22, because if they then go out of their way to say this film is not allowed to be broadcast, they will unequivocally show the world there is no such thing as free speech. And they will showcase that they have got massive secrets that they're hiding. But if they choose not to do that, then we're just going to put the film out, and everything they try to do as far as Tommy Robinson is concerned will be for nothing, because they will be unable to stop 1 million plus people from being able to put this film out. They can't lock everyone else up because their prisons would fill up. But knowing Keir the traitor Starmer, it wouldn't surprise me if he then released more killers, more rapists, more PDF files, just to make room for us all. But we all know that Keir the traitor Starmer has about as pleasant an aroma as mustard gas in a test tube. Yes, I wonder what trouble Coleman's gotten himself into this time. Anyway, they have no respect for Tommy Robinson, but even if that is truly the case, and even if they want to stop him from releasing that film to save face, as I said, they won't be able to stop all of us. That's the long and short of it. And even if they do stop us people in the UK from doing it, there are people who've already released it in America before Tommy even broke the contempt of court in the first place. Or the supposed contempt of court, I should say. So, what chances do you think of you being able to permanently silence this documentary, which is ironically called Silenced? 166 million views on Twitter. I think there's a very good reason why they don't want this film out. And it is simply because it exposes the government. If all these people on the bus, just them alone, were to hear of this documentary, start watching that documentary, and are shown the truth, given the red pill, even that alone could spark something massive. Because then she tells a friend, who then tells a friend, and those friends tell their friends, etc., etc. It's the butterfly effect. And then all of a sudden, it's not 20 people on a bus who hear about this, it's 2,000, and then 20,000, and then 200,000. And more people would find out about this, realise what our government are doing, and then they would be seeking to overthrow the government. And let me be clear, as I've said before, every time without fail, I don't particularly want it. I don't particularly want this country to go into a civil blank. But I know, as I said before many times, the truth is, that's where we're heading. And what I have a problem with, as far as Paul Thorpe and Richard Inman, they can support themselves, they can support their families, put their families first and what have you, and their faith or whatever. That's entirely down to them, and they're entitled to do that. What I have a problem with is them living under this delusion that we can end this peacefully, that we can vote our way out of this. That's where I have the problem. They clearly don't understand the means, the lengths that our government will go to just to suppress freedom of speech and suppress its inhabitants, basically. And it saddens me that we have such blatant two-tier policing and two-tier justice, even here in Norwich, where people can make threats to people who are filming with a camera, yet nothing will get done to them. They'll lie about people and they don't get arrested. Yet we can have our own people, i.e. Truth 101 UK Hertz, or whatever his name was. I do remember mentioning him in the past. He ended up getting arrested, though thankfully he was released without charge, because the police did actually, for once, utilise that rare resource called common sense and realised he never committed any crimes. But what if some people were weaker than that, and they didn't know the law, and they didn't know what they had the right to do? They'd probably end up getting locked up under Keir the traitor Starmer's regime. And for anybody who's viewing this outside the United Kingdom, if I hadn't mentioned what country I'm living in right now, you'd almost think this was North Korea, China or Russia. I mean, it certainly doesn't sound like the land of free speech, does it? You know what I really hate? I hate it when people are not prepared when they get on the bus. You sit there and you think to yourself, all you have to do is get your credit card out or have the appropriate money when you get on the bus, and yet there are some people who literally spend 20 fucking years doing that shit. Right, got that out of my system. Let's continue. At the end of the day, Keir the traitor Starmer really is in a complete catch-22 with this. And what I find even more sinister on top of all this is the fact that he's mentioned that he's giving a package of like 100 million or so pounds to support Palestine. Or yet again, maybe I was right first time. You know, the people who end up supporting Hamas, the people who basically are a prescribed T group. Yes, Keir the traitor Starmer has dedicated 105 million pounds or something along those lines, or was it 150? I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was definitely a triple digit figure. I can say that much. He has dedicated that money to people who are sympathisers of T's. The cold bitter truth is, this establishment, this oligarchy, does not care about its inhabitants. It does not care about the British people. It wants to replace us with people from the third world. It's as simple as that. And any hope that we can vote our way out of this one is at best wishful thinking, and at worst, it is holding us back, put simply. The sooner we realise there is no voting out of this one, the sooner people will wake up and they will storm Parliament and get these traitors out of power. And they can sit there and say, oh, you see, far right, there are racists and thugs and football hooligans and blah, blah, blah. The truth is, the only people who will be to blame for this uprising will be the establishment themselves, the oligarchy, because they're the ones who caused it. There is a reason I say we need to prepare for battle, and this is it. It is becoming more and more apparent every single day that the only way we're getting our country back is if we fight for it. We need to get active. We need to form groups. And I'm not talking about groups of 10 or 20. We need thousands of people grouped together, ready to engage in this civil W. Thank you. We need thousands of people, at least, ready to fight. Ready to take the fight to the establishment. I normally don't condone this. I normally wouldn't justify it. However, the cold bitter truth is, we have two choices, because there's only one or two ways this is going to end. It's either going to end with us reclaiming our country from this treacherous oligarchy, or it's going to end with Sharia law in place and the religion of the Bell End churches and Alan Snack Bar ruling over us, and we live the rest of our lives on our knees. And that's the cold bitter truth that I think Richard Inman and Paul Thorpe don't want to say out loud. They don't want to admit that that's what's going to happen. They don't want to admit that CW is where we're heading. Civil blank is where we're heading. We can't stop it. What we can do, though, is prepare for it. I'd be lying if I said it was easy, but most things in life are not easy. And this is going to be another one of those things that isn't easy. And we have to be prepared to accept the cold bitter truth. The enemy's got a huge advantage of us, over us, as they have been preparing for much longer than we have. We have been docile for all this time. We have been apathetic all this time. It's time we got people mobilised. It's time we got people up and about. It's time we started telling people, you need to prepare to defend yourselves. Because I can tell you right now, the Alan Snack Bar worshippers, they're not going to give a shit whether or not you're a patriot or just a fast asleep civilian. They're only going to care about conquering and domination and ending your free trial of life in the name of Alan Snack Bar. These are just home truths that Richard Inman and Paul Thorpe have never had the balls, whether up here or down there, or in my case both, to actually stand up and say. Have they done a lot for the country? Yes, they have. I'm not denying that. What I am saying is that they haven't had the backbone to say the hard things, to mention things as they are. Right, let's get out of this shit. And if people are turned off of what I've said about Richard Inman and Paul Thorpe, you're probably going to like this bit even less. That protest, apparently it's been claimed to be on the 28th of June. I'm not going to it. You know why? Because there's no point. Because all it's going to be is more of the same. I mean, okay, devil's advocate, it does showcase a lot more of the we have the moral high ground and we're willing to do this peacefully and all that shit. But the cold bitter truth is, peaceful protests have done fuck all for us. That's the cold bitter truth. They have done nothing to solve this issue. I mean, the only time it's truly done anything is when there was that protest outside HMP Belmarsh, in which case they were forced to back down and say, yeah, you know what, Tommy Robinson deserves more rights as a civil prisoner, even though we're still going to lock him up as a criminal prisoner in a Category A prison. Which, of course, the mainstream media are not going to tell you. But other than that, honestly, I could count the number of good things that have come out from peaceful protests on one hand. And it ain't 5, let me tell you. I think it's more like a resounding 1, quite frankly. We have received next to nothing from the establishment, the oligarchy, on the back of these peaceful protests. Maybe you could argue a second point as far as John Sweeney is concerned, because they effectively had to sack him. They effectively were forced to make the cuts because John Sweeney ended up turning out to be a homophobe, because he was calling people, I believe he said, woofters, if I recall correctly. So obviously an extremely derogatory homophobic slur, which I do not condone in the slightest bit whatsoever. Be civil with people. Even if you don't agree with homosexuality or what have you, be respectful at least. That's the way I look at it. But yeah, that's the reason I'm not going to be attending on the 28th of June. Simply, it's not going to achieve anything. And I'm not saying that as a matter of apathy. I am saying that as a matter of realism. Because I can assure you right now, I am not apathetic in the slightest. I do genuinely care about this country. And if, come what may, a civil W started, just point me in the right fucking direction. And no matter how unfit I am, or whether or not I look like 2 fucking people, I'll do my bit for the country, quite frankly. Can you say the same of Keir the traitor Starmer? He's about as willing to serve his country as I am of going on an all-salad diet even. God, nearly had a stroke, bloody hell. But you get what I mean. They have no desire to serve us. And people will say fake sympathy, or fake patriotism and what have you. No, this is very fucking genuine. And I'll prove it. I'll put my money where my mouth is, come what may. Which I know is in a couple of days, but that's beside the point. Anyway, I will give what I can, no matter how little it is. Just point me in the right direction. That's the way I slice it. But we need to mobilise a massive army, ready to do more robust things. No more of this lovey-dovey kumbaya and sweet Carolina or whatever. We need to start doing far more robust actions and actually hold our establishment to account. Because whenever they see us doing the peaceful protests, do you know what they do? They laugh at us. They take the piss. And in the trans people's case, they take a piss in Parliament Square. And nothing gets done about them, despite it being a blatant public order offence. But if you piss next to a copper monument and you aren't a trans activist, you'll get sent to jail. 2-tier policing. But there comes a time where sometimes an evil must be done for a greater evil to be prevented.
That is a sad, inevitable truth. Sometimes we have to do stuff we may not like for the greater good of the country. And this is one of those times. We have to be prepared to fight because our establishment is looking to replace us. And the only way they're replacing me, if a civil blank comes to the forefront, is if they take the last breath from my cold, dying corpse.